All right, if you love hunting, but you need to save a little bit of money, you need to check out camofire.com. I'm talking about insane deals on top hunting gear. You get optics, clothing, you name it, huge discounts. I've been a longtime customer of camofire.com and they ship out quick. New gear drops every day, but once it's gone, it's gone. You got to act fast. Download the app. Get on camofire.com. You don't even need a code. The deals are that good. Save up to 40 to 70% off. Get on camofire.com and start snagging those deals before they disappear. Welcome back to episode 90. This is First Generation Bowhunter. This is the podcast where you're going to learn how to bow hunt. It's a super overwhelming sport. I've been there. I'm a first generation bowhunter myself. And in this episode, I want to talk about choosing your first bow, what beginners need to know and what often is not talked about. So I want to break down, the advice that I've received, the advice that's worked really well for me, and stuff that you can kind of let go of. So we're going to dive in here, talk about just bows in general, how to kind of get started there. I'm not going to spend a ton of time in this first section of the difference between a compound and traditional bow, because if you're this far in, you might have already bought a bow, but let's talk about real quick, what's the difference between compound and traditional, and why you may want to do a traditional bow. Not super common. I don't see it a lot, but I could anticipate a trend where people may want to try it out, get that more primitive experience. But let's go in here. So a compound bow, that is the most popular way to kill a deer with a bow. It's going to be your best advantage for accuracy, mechanical advantage, and it's really easy to pull back. You can hold back longer with how the let off is designed. And that really matters, in my opinion, when you're a newer bow hunter. There's a whole lot happening. When that deer is standing there in range, you want to get that shot. You don't want to be fiddling around, shaking too much, because guess what? You're already going to be shaking a lot. You're going to be super nervous. So I like the compound bow mechanically. It's going to be a lot more forgiving. You're also going to get a lot of accessories with a compound bow, which gives you better accuracy. So things like sights, stabilizers, all that good stuff. So if you've already bought your bow, I'm kind of preaching to the choir right now. But if you haven't bought a bow yet, this is good to listen to, because I didn't realize all the different things that you need to buy for a bow. And just budget-wise, it's really good to keep some money for that. I like also the precision and just consistency of a compound bow. I've shot traditional bows before, like off and on over the years, just like at the practice range. And it's a totally different experience. So let's talk about traditional bows. It's going to be more instinctive, meaning you have got to go off your gut a lot more. You've got to shoot that thing, I would say 5 to 10 times more than you would a compound, because the learning curve is way more difficult. But if you've shot a compound bow for a long time, I think intermediate advanced, you should try the recurve or long bow. But it's hopefully you've probably killed a few deer by then, because I think if I was pulled back with a traditional bow on my very first hunt, I was shaking all over the place. That's why I missed. So if you want success, definitely lean on the compound. I think that's what this show is all about. I want to get you successful as soon as you can, even just hitting the target in the backyard. I want to be careful using the word success tied to killing a deer, because I believe in a lot of micro successes along the way. So even a success of you drilling the target at 60 yards, that's a huge deal. I remember when I was shooting really tight groups, it was, just a lot of fun. And I felt like that success was so important and just addictive. It was like, okay, here we go. We're diving in. If you've got any questions on compound bows, what you want to get started with, I'll cover that here in a minute, but you can always send me a message, Adam_Buchanan on Instagram, or find me on LinkedIn. And let's dive into what you're after, and happy to help. I will say, just a quick pro tip, you can buy a used bow. That's perfectly fine. There's no need to drop your whole budget on a brand new bow that's completely bare and you don't even have accessories for. So Nice thing about buying used, you're going to get accessories unless they're selling it bare. So let's talk about correct draw length and draw weight. Draw length is not a major discussion, but let's talk about that for a second, and then we're going to talk about draw weight. Draw length, just make sure that you have someone else help you. It's your wingspan divided by 2.5. That's really where you're going to find your draw length. I do like getting somebody who's done it before, get someone close to you, hop into a shop, and that is the best way to get a very accurate draw length. Draw length is very important because there's a lot of dominoes that fall based off your draw length. It's how your bow is set. You set it in 0.5 increments. And so you want to make sure you measure correctly. And then your arrow length, it's all based on your draw length. So you've got to make sure you're cutting your arrows at the correct length, that type of thing. So having that extra archery shop or a buddy who's very comfortable with this is super, super important. So draw length, that actually is very important. You also don't want to cut an arrow too short and it falls off your rest and, heaven forbid, injures your hand. That would be absolutely terrible. When it comes to arrows, I don't mess around. I shoot gold tip. I put a lot of deer on the ground with my gold tip arrows. These things are tough, they fly straight, and they get the job done. Whether I'm shooting in the backyard or chasing that deer in the woods, I trust gold tip every time to deliver. If you want arrows to take a beating, but still punch through and drive that penetration, it's going to be with gold tip arrows. You won't regret it. Get them on blackovis.com and find your new set of arrows today. You're going to love it, and you're going to fill your tag this season. So make sure draw what length you take time, especially as a new bow hunter, and you don't rush into buying a bow. I see a lot of mistakes, and I've made this mistake myself. I bought a bow, and it's like, yeah, it's an adjustable draw length. Well, there's ranges of draw lengths that some bows only go down or up to. And I bought a bow that didn't go down low enough because I'm 5'8", didn't go down low enough. It was for, wingspans way higher. So more like a guy 6 foot or more. So really big draw lengths. So some bows you can adjust on the fly without putting it in a bow press, which is really handy. I had a bow for my son that I could just literally remove a few screws, adjust the cam. It was super simple. So it's really good for youth hunting to get a bow that's just adjustable without a bow press. All right, let's talk about bow weight. So in some states, make sure to check your regulations, figure out how much weight you need to pull back. Legally, it has to have so much weight to have so much kinetic energy for so much penetration to give the animal, fair respect, not just kind of injure it and, the arrows kind of dangling out of the side of it. That'd be an awful situation. So to start out where you want to be for the guys, 40 to 50 pounds is a good place to start. For my son right now, he's got a really nice bow. We bumped him up to a really nice Hoyt Torix, and he's at 35 pounds. So he's kind of, he's growing right now. He's getting more strong. So we're going to get him up, by the end of this season, probably up to 40, 45. And that's where kind of women and teens are going to be 30 to 40, that type of poundage. So it's really critical to understand your draw weight and really pay close attention to that. Make sure you're not just adjusting that on the fly. It is easy to adjust. However, there's not like a dial on the side of the bow that says you've adjusted it to so many pounds. It's, in some ways, I almost don't even want to explain it. I'd rather you YouTube the, video from like Elk Shape or somebody who's talking about adjusting that, and just be very, very careful because there's two main screws that you adjust. They have to be perfectly even when you do that, and they are separate. So it's kind of like, when the government does like the two separate keys for like the nuclear warhead to launch it, it's kind of what it is of adjusting your draw weight. So be very, very careful there. Just because you increase your your draw weight doesn't necessarily mean that you're so much more accurate, or you're so much better. You want to be thoughtful of your draw weight and what your strength is. So you can pull back lots and lots of weight, maybe once or twice. But if you want to go shoot your bow and you want to shoot 25 arrows in a session, you got to be thoughtful of really getting in those good repetitions, that good practice, and then making sure your bow is tuned, to that weight. A lot of adjustments here. I think sometimes people think bigger is better or faster is better. It all depends on arrows, broadheads. There's so many different factors, but just starting out, do what your body can handle. Be very thoughtful of like your shoulder strength and safety. So don't be tearing muscles. I've had some bad experiences where I've shot too much and too much weight, and my repetitions were too much, and I'm like tearing my shoulders, and then you can't shoot for quite a while. And that is the worst. So just a little bit on draw length and draw weight. Again, ask me any questions you'd like. And if I don't know, I'll go find somebody who does and help you out there. On the budget side, a lot of people ask me this: what should I spend the most on? What can I, kind of not have to spend maybe as much on? Here's where I would kind of lay out my budget. And I've evolved over the years on this. So if you've listened to a previous episode and you're like, oh, your mindset has changed. Well, as I discuss this so much and answer it, sometimes over the years, I do kind of think differently about where to put the money. I wouldn't put everything into the bow. I wouldn't be driving around the Lexus or the Mercedes bow like out the gate. And even down the road, like if you kill a deer or two and you're like, wow, I'm feeling really good, and it's killing deer, don't worry about upgrading your bow so fast. For consistency, penetration, kinetic energy, it is good to have a very, very dialed bow. I always tell people too, if you get a really nice bow and you enjoy shooting it, you're going to shoot it, you're going to practice with it. If you don't like how it's shooting, if it's all over the place, you just can't really get good consistency, it's not going to be fun. That's just how it is. We're here to have fun. And so I would say don't go too cheap on a bow, but also don't feel like you have to have, the top shelf. Arrows and a sight are probably the two places I would put a good amount of money on the mid to high end. I shoot gold tip arrows and I shoot the 4mm Pierce right now. I've shot the 5mm Kinetic Chaos, both great, consistent shooting arrows. I really just appreciate how consistent and durable these arrows are. And so I didn't realize how, again, as a beginner, I didn't realize how important arrows were. I was buying them from Walmart for $2.50 an arrow. So I'm a lot more right now of how much those arrows are worth that I'm now shooting, but do not skimp on them. You can get a little nerdy on the fletchings, 4 fletch versus 3 fletch. I won't go in that on this particular episode. So you can get nerdy there, and there's some fun things you can do, helical, all that. But if you bought a really nice set of gold tips and they're just pre-fletched, that's totally fine. You are going to notice improved accuracy. The wrist release, that's going to be a piece where you probably start out on a wrist release. I wouldn't do a thumb button, just personally. There's so many things you're juggling when you're first starting out. I would definitely recommend just kind of going with a wrist release. You don't have to go super expensive. I would say stick to the $30 to $50 range. There are $20 options. I would avoid those and just go up just a notch. I would recommend the non-Velcro wrist. Do the leather buckle, like a belt buckle. It's just a lot more steady. Where you don't have to spend as much money would be a quiver, a stabilizer, and, all your clothing. You want to find good clothing, but you don't have to have like the highest end camo out there. I've even killed a lot of deer while bow hunting in solids. And so camo even isn't like ultra critical. Your scent is going to be more critical. So don't feel like you have to dump all this money into a bow and that whole setup, and then you got to dump all this money on clothing. I even like this year, I'm tempted to just go out and like a flannel and just see what happens. Cause I, being seen, being smelled are really more of the key things there. On the targets, again, if you're having fun shooting, you're going to shoot more. I did start out with like the straw, like box targets that are like squishy. Now I have more of the Reinhardts, the self-healing foams, those types of things. There's a massive price difference. You can make your own. I wouldn't spend the time doing it. I would just, get a target that you can repeatedly shoot and it won't just completely fall apart. You can watch for specs on a target and see how much, poundage, FPS, how much penetration a target can handle. So watch for that. And there's also certain targets specific to crossbows. So just be very thoughtful of what you're buying. I have bought used targets, but it was also because you could tell right on the target, like a self-healing foam target, it only been shot at maybe 5 times. I actually bought a brand new Reinhardt for $20 off a guy who'd never shot it. I looked the whole thing over, didn't have one hole in it. It was probably $150 foam target. So again, you can buy used. It's not like the worst. I would just be very thoughtful of what you're comfortable with. So there's some things you can buy used and save a lot of money on. When it comes to stabilizers, something like that, those are important. I have noticed a substantial difference, a difference enough where it's like, okay, I need a stabilizer. I would say use stabilizers the way to go. It's really just balancing the weight and offsetting when the arrow releases. And so it does help with accuracy quite a bit. So I would really, put the money where it needs to be, in the bow, in the arrows, in the sight. And I would say the rest. You want a drop away rest. Get rid of the whisker biscuit. They're good to start. You can definitely shoot things. I've killed a deer with a whisker biscuit, but a drop away rest does have a pretty substantial level up for, killing something. In terms of brands of bows, I'll kind of close here. There's so many out there. There's so many different ones. I started with a bear archery and I shot Bowtech for a while. I shot Elite, really enjoyed Elite. When I went from Bowtech to Elite, it was just a substantial difference. You're dealing with more aggressive cams, more comfortable let off. You can hold, the pose longer, be drawn back for a longer period of time. Try, if you've got the budget and you are wanting to buy something a little bit newer, I would go, shoot a lot of bows at a pro shop and just keep your buddies close, ask them a lot of questions. You're going to get people who are very brand loyal. I now am brand loyal to Hoyt. It's what I've been shooting for a lot of years now. They're great, consistent. For how long I've been doing it, it's perfect for me. But you definitely don't have to start out right out the gate at the top shelf Hoyt. I shoot an Alpha X right now, and I've shot the RX1 for a lot of years. And the RX1 I still have hung onto, even though it's a lot older. Air quotes, when I say older, it's not that old. I mean, RX1, probably 5 or 6, maybe 6 years or more. That's really not that long in the bow hunting world. All right, listen up. If you're a bow hunter like me, you know the struggle of getting arrows dialed in. Cutting, fletching, tuning, it's a hassle. That's why I use Arrow ID on blackovis.com. I've built so many arrows on there. Every time they show up perfect, cut to my exact length, fletched how I want, and ready to hunt out of the box. Seriously, stop wasting time. And speaking of time, use code SPEED25. You get Express Lightning service, which is worth $25 for free on Arrow ID on blackovis.com. It's a game changer. Hit up Arrow ID and thank me later. If you're building bows and you're like a brand listening to this right now, you probably think it's like 20 years, but to us common folk, it's not that big of a deal. So Yeah, there's no like absolute perfect bow. I'd say the best bow is going to be the one you enjoy shooting, that you're going to go out and shoot consistently, and that it fits you properly. The other thing I would carve out a little money for is get a coach, get a few lessons. When you do it with your friends and they're showing you the mechanics of shooting an arrow, you can get an arrow to blaze down the range and maybe even kill something. However, it's really important to nail some of the basics that are often overlooked. Even me, if I'm teaching someone how to shoot their bow, I'm not the best teacher either. And I might miss some things of their stance, how they're positioned. And I'm not still even that great at it, but I know some basics. But a nice thing about a coach is you don't know them. They're not your friend. They're going to be very objective. They're going to give it to you straight, but get in there early. Don't just go shoot for a long time, create all these crappy habits. And you're like, well, I'm, shooting good groups and I'm accurate. It's better to start, get that coach in and get those good habits out the gate. Um, and then just be thoughtful of, when you buy your first bow, what do you like about it? What's going well? And then what are some things that you might be longing for? And really pay attention to those really close. So, all right. Well, that is episode 90. Just getting into that first bow, getting into that equipment. I've talked about this many times on the podcast before, so you can bounce around, kind of hear some other thoughts. But I just did want to put out a fresh episode because it is probably my most asked question. And buying that bow is exciting. It's very primal. I can imagine what it was like, our ancestors, picking out their bow or like going to build it. I don't know if they went to the little marketplace, I guess, or who knows? Who knows how that happened? I'm sure they chopped it up and like pulled it out of a tree and built their bows. But it is fun. It's fun to make that big purchase, but there's a lot of different things as I've discussed here. If you've got any follow-up questions, give me a shout, Adam_Buchanan on Instagram, and drop me a line on LinkedIn or Facebook. Pretty easy to find. Well, actually, I think there is a few Adam Buchanans out there. I digress. But thanks for tuning in. Subscribe to First Generation Bowhunter. Tune in for more episodes that are coming. Talk about gear, all the good things and fun stuff to get you a deer on the ground this season. I wish you the best of luck, and see you on the next one.